Welcome back, Ultima Weapons. It's the Night Sky Prince again. It's still so hard to believe that Hajime Tabata is no longer working for Square. For a while, he had become one of the biggest faces of the company by directing Final Fantasy XV. Throughout his time at Square, he produced some incredibly well-received titles, such as Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy Type 0. Type 0 being one of my absolute favorites. With him leaving the company so abruptly for unspecified reasons, he stated that his new ambition was to open a company of his own and develop his own games, which he suggests in his letter of resignation he couldn't do at Square Enix. Recently, Tabata has announced the name of his new studio going forward, introducing JP Games. Yeah, it's not the most original name ever, but it doesn't need to be. They just need to produce high-quality games. Tabata stated, quote, "I started up my own company called JP Games Inc. Right now, we are preparing for a target January 2019 launch. And to everyone who has assisted me until today, I kindly ask for your ongoing support." As a note here, when he says target launch of January 2019, he's talking about the company, not a game that they'll be releasing. Tabata still has many challenges ahead of himself. JP Games is presumably going to be much smaller than the AAA staff he was afforded at Square. It makes me wonder what type of game him and his company will be making. Tabata is strongly known for his fascination and ambition with games as a service. These are games that you don't just purchase and then play through them and then put them away, but rather, much like Final Fantasy XV, they're always receiving new updates, new events, and new DLC that's both free and paid. When you factor that into his previous experience with mobile game development, such as the Japanese Docomo Phone spin-off game Before Crisis, Final Fantasy VII, or even his PSP experience with developing games like The Third Birthday, Type 0, and even Crisis Core, it leads me to believe that his next game might just be one for iOS and Android. Of course, that might disappoint some of you, but considering that it's a startup company that doesn't have nearly the capacity or funding of a big studio, a mobile game with a strong service behind it might just be what they need to get started as a company. Alternatively, there is another way in which the company might be able to create AAA games for console from the start, and that is if they receive funding from another company. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are constantly looking for new talent, and regardless of how you may personally feel about Tabata's games, you have to admit that he has a pretty strong resume, a great reputation throughout the industry, and he's seen as a forward thinker and innovator, and he's seen as the one who saved Final Fantasy XV from its development struggles. It would not surprise me at all if one of these big companies wanted to fund or publish Tabata's work. This is how Hironobu Sakaguchi was able to leave Square and form Mistwalker, as he had funding coming from Microsoft. Hideo Kojima was able to get funding after he left Konami, and not only did Sony fund Lost Souls aside, they even provided staff to assist the creator in the game's production. Meanwhile, back at Square Enix's newly formed Luminous Productions, the Final Fantasy XV team was left as a crew without a captain. Over the past few weeks, we had been wondering who would take over for Hajime Tabata in leading the newly formed subsidiary and developing their new IP. Takeshi Aramaki, who worked as a lead programmer on Final Fantasy XV, as well as the much-enhanced Final Fantasy XV Windows Edition. Aramaki saying, quote, "I had the honor of being the lead programmer for Final Fantasy XV. In developing FF15, we meticulously pursued the potential of games, from the open world systems to the application of a motion-filled AI. This philosophy is ingrained in our staff and Luminous Engine in our proprietary creative toolset, which continues to grow each day. We are currently making steady progress on a brand new title. We cannot wait to show you, and we hope you look forward to its reveal." It seems that much like Final Fantasy XV, Luminous Productions plans to continue their endeavors with open-world RPGs. Though since Tabata has left, it's unknown if the new game will be a service title or if it'll be a standalone game with some DLC tied to it. Luminous Productions, formerly known as Business Division 2, once commented before the release of Final Fantasy XV that the technology base in place would make for an excellent Final Fantasy XVI. However, since then, they've denied they'd be the ones working on the next mainline Final Fantasy. Instead, they're said to be working on a new AAA IP for PlayStation 5. So as for who will be developing Final Fantasy XVI, who knows at this point? It's hard to say what both of these newly formed companies are are working on, but both games are greatly anticipated by fans. I'm dying to see what Luminous Productions and Square Enix will be doing with this new IP. So Ultima Weapons, I want to know, what kind of game do you think Hajime Tabata is working on? And for that matter, what kind of game do you think Luminous Productions is working on? Do you think it's really Final Fantasy 16 and they're just pulling our chain for shock value? Or do you think it'll be a groundbreaking new IP? Subscribe, click the bell icon, and let me know in the comments below. And if you really love Tabata's games like Final Fantasy Type 0, I mean really love Type 0, be sure to head on over to our Facebook group, Ultima, Square Enix plus JRPGs. Be sure to take a screenshot when you dodge roll, link in the description below.